Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. My name is Lukman Haikal bin Rosaino. I am from RSL 2435A. Alright, on this video, me and my team will be presenting about the training, instruction and feedback. Alright, let's go to the next page. Okay, alright, as we can see, this is my group members, which is consists of Nur Aliza binti Adnan, Siti Aisyah binti Bahrum, and Nur Najwa Izzati binti Ramli. Alright, for the introduction of the feedback, classifying feedback is initially it was based on only the actual movement, which is proprioceptive feedback, which compare the actual feedback to the desired goal to eliminate errors. And the present definitions broadens feedbacks to include any type of sensory information relevant to the movement. And feedback is available usually before the movement, which is pre-movement, some during movement and post-movement, which is the after the movement is exhibit. Alright, for the classification of feedback, it is consists of two, which is the intrinsic feedback and the extrinsic feedback. What is intrinsic feedback? It is a sensory information which is derived from movement produced. Information may come from outside the body, which is the exteroception, or within the body, which is the interoception or proprioception. And for the extrinsic feedback is augmented feedback, which is a sensory information which is obtained from sources outside of the body.
I will continue with the next slide. Kinds of feedback. Knowledge of result is intrinsic, verbal information that tells the learner about the success or failure of his or her action. Intrinsic involves completing a task or exhibiting a behavior because of outside causes such as avoiding punishment or receiving a reward. Intrinsic involves performing a task because it is personally rewarding to you. Knowledge of performance is related to the quality of movement a performer has produced. Requirement of feedback. Typically, without knowledge of result, there is little or no learning. One must have some sort of error detection form, either knowledge of performance or knowledge of result, or both. These include the need of competence, autonomy, and relatedness, along with satisfying these underlying psychological needs. Intrinsic also involves seeking out and engaging in activity that we have challenging, interesting, and internally rewarding without the prospect of any internal reward.
Alright, for the motivation and extrinsic feedback, it helps to boost and energize the learners or the individuals to increase their efforts to achieve their goal. And the feedback also can produce immediate stimulation during a long task. It also, the motivating feedback can lead to more enjoyable, which is fun experiences, as participant or the individuals will work harder and practice for a longer duration. It is need to take into the account to provide the feedback directly so that it does not affect the motivation of the individuals as well as their learning, especially during the early learning stages. It is important to always continue to give the motivational feedback for improvement and effort, sometimes even if the goals isn't achieved or is not met.
Thank you, Luqman Haikan. I'm Aliza binti Adnan. I will continue the reinforcement. Reinforcing feedback means that we want someone to keep doing and certain positive behavior. Reinforcement after a person response is necessary and increase the likelihood that he or she will produce the same response under similar circumstances. Okay, next is three type of the reinforcement. Okay, have a three type. First is positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and punishment. For positive reinforcement, an event following a response, the cause people to repeat the action under similar circumstances. Okay, next is negative reinforcement. Remove unpleasant stimulus to increase the likelihood of the desired positive behavior. For example, car manufacturers use the principle of negative reinforcement in their seatbelt system. We go beep 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 until you fasten your seatbelt. Okay, last is punishment. Then the person that the action is not desired but do not give the correct beneficial informations. Okay, next continue reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement give only occasionally in more effective for learning the feedback give after every performance. Informational feedback provide error correction. Information more precise that the shoot was a little wise.
Alright, on dependency producing properties of feedback. When feedback that contains information for error correction given frequently, it tends to guide the behavior toward the goal's movement, either physically or cognitively. And the learners or the individuals may become dependent on guidance and rely on augmented feedback rather than intrinsic, which is the independent processes. And the performance may deteriorate when guidance is removed, which is it can be concluded that if the guidance will be removed, it may result in the failure of the performance or the errors occurring during the performance.
Okay, next is information feedback. Complexity of the task and experience of learn critical. Feedback is beneficial while learning difficult tasks but not simple tasks. Information about the feature that people have a most control over yearly start for tennis swing is more value. Provide information about the feature of the movement. They are most critical for performing the overall action. It is critical to give initial feedback to help learners correct error about the fundamental movement pattern. Parameter feedback provide with error information about the parameter values. Amplitude, speed, force. They have a selecting to make their movement fit the environment's requirement. That's all for me. Next, Siti Aisyah will continue the presentation.
Thank you, presenter. So I will continue with the next slide, which is a visual feedback. Visual feedback is a training approach used in athlete attention. It is attached to an external visual cue in relation to the specific movement, motor function, or activity that they are performing. A coach or instructor must give guidance on important aspects of visual feedback. The most common form of visual feedback is a videotape. It can be anything from a video of the athletes while performing a task. So it is very necessary for both athletes and coaches in order to detect errors in performance relative to the target. However, visual feedback also has their limitation, such as too much info, and the information also can be useless unless cues are provided. Then it is okay. Next, types of feedback. Feedback placed during the learning as athletes work on tasks, or it can be offered as soon as possible after the task, allowing time for improvement to be made. Athletes who receive feedback during a task can act on it right away and strive to improve throughout the learning process. Too often feedback that is provided to athlete after a task has concluded is not used by the athlete to improve their performance. This often results in coaches or instructor making the same comments over and over again and wondering why the athlete's performance was unchanged. So, there are 5 types of feedback, which is descriptive feedback, prescriptive feedback, summary feedback, average feedback, and bandwidth feedback. We will go one by one. Descriptive feedback. It is a specific information in the form of written comments or verbal conversation that helps the athletes understand what they need to do in order to improve their performance. It may include words to reinforce or instruct, give knowledge of result or knowledge of performance to the athlete, such as you missed or you hit the target. Next, prescriptive feedback. It helps the athletes correct their movement. For example, a statement from a coach such as loosen your grip or bend your knees during the task will help the athletes understand why they need to change in order to get a better result. So, the coaches or instructor provide prescriptive feedback to their athletes to correct the skill. So, this feedback is very important. Next is summary feedback. Summary feedback provides a summary of the performance after the movement or the task are completed. Summary feedback tells athletes how they perform on each of several practice attempts. Next, average feedback. So, average feedback highlights the general tendencies in athlete performance. In a simple word, average feedback is info about average performance of the athletes. Next, lastly, bandwidth feedback. It is given when errors exceed a certain threshold, which means that it is given when the athlete's performance falls outside a certain acceptable level of error. The wider the bandwidth, the more error allowed. Over time, as the athlete performance improves, the bandwidth is reduced and the feedback becomes more specific and focused. So, bandwidth feedback has 2 types, which is qualitative feedback and quantitative feedback. Example for qualitative is you missed, while for quantitative feedback is you missed by 2 feet to the left. Okay, so we move to the next slide. Frequency of feedback. Frequency of feedback is about how often for coaches or instructor provide feedback to their athletes. So, for your information, performance improve with more frequent input, but motor learning improve with less frequent feedback. However, according to Stadler and Du Bois 2015, the appropriate frequency is dependent upon the difficulty of the skill and the level of expertise. Athletes usually pick up on the simpler and slower motion quickly, requiring just minimal guidance after the initial introductions. Feedback may shift from a focus on posture to a focus on intention as they demonstrate competence. However, with quick and sophisticated skill like sprinting, learning happen over a longer length of time, requiring more frequent feedback. So I think that's all from me. We will move to the next presenter.
Timing of feedback. Instantaneous feedback is provided immediately after movement completion. Instantaneous feedback results in less learning or proper performance than delayed feedback does. Delayed feedback is provided several seconds or more after movement completion. Delayed feedback is believed to allow learners time to process their own feedback and estimate their own errors, which allow more learning. And the conclusion is, job of the choice experts should make to give the best growth opportunities. Two significant clarification of input and two kinds of feedback: motivational, reinforcing, informational, and depending producing properties of interest feedback. Be a source of feedback to let people know when their performance has achieved a standard that is deserving of reinforcement. Induce interest and participation is an activity an individual was not initially interested in. Motivate people to acquire new skill or knowledge. Once these early skills have been learned, people might become more intrinsically motivated to pursue an activity.